guys, and welcome back here to the Dev Realm. And in the previous lesson, what we did here is that we have created our lever. So our lever now, it actually controls those doors, as you can see here, which is really good. And in the lesson of today, we're gonna be creating a chain effect. So I want to trigger the first door, then this door will trigger the other door, and keep going, keep creating this chain here. So to do this, the first thing we're gonna do here is just gonna clear all those arrays, and we want to make sure we only trigger one door, which is the first one on the lever, right? Now done this, let's go ahead to our door actor, and let's just prepare our actor here to handle this kind of stuff. All right, so if you guys remember, we have done this logic here. What is it on the lever? We have done this logic in here. We can potentially copy this, but I think the problem with this is that we are copying and paste all over again things that we don't really need to do this. All right, so what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna create a function, and then I can call this function, and then in this way I don't have to keep repeating myself. So let's go back to the puzzle. Let's create another function, and let's call fn trigger. Actually, let's call manual trigger actors, and let's just copy everything here, paste it in that. Yep. And now we're just gonna do a return node, compile and save. Yeah, no, that's fine, it's okay. And now if I go back to my base lever, what we can do here is that we can call this function fn manual trigger actors, and that would have exactly the same effect. Now if compile and save, that should still works exactly as it was before, right? The only difference now, it should only trigger the first door, which it does, which is really cool. Nice. Now the next thing I want to do here is I want to do the same for the doors. So let's say that when you trigger your door, you want your door to, I don't know, trigger another puzzle that creates lights or creates something or save the game. Doesn't matter. Whatever you want, you can do with this. Right, so to do that, let's go back to our puzzle door here. Let's open up our actor, and if you guys remember, we have this huge line here. Let's just comment and say when the door gets interact with, right? And now when it's finished, I'm just gonna paste, I'm gonna call that same function here manual trigger action, right? So that just go in here, type fn and then manual trigger action. And now I'm gonna plug this here, and I'm gonna plug this can interact once it's finished. Right, cool. So now if everything works the way I'm thinking it should work, we should be able to trigger door number 2. Let's see if that works. And you should have a little bit of a delay, shouldn't be straight away. Nice. Right, so now from the door number 2, we can trigger the door number 3, and look how cool is this now. So what we could do here is that we could create like a forever loop or something crazy. So for example, you could do something. Oh, let me go back here. Now what we create here is a domino effect that loop on himself. So we open the door here, trigger, 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 and as you can see, it keeps doing this loop forever, which is really cool. Let's say you're creating some kind of a game where you need to do this kind of stuff. Yeah, that's a possible way of doing this. Yeah, and this is happening because if you guys don't fully understand what's happening, this is what we call a recursive function. So it's a function that loops on himself. But in this case, we're not looping through any data. We actually basically saying, okay, you gonna trigger you, which is gonna trigger you, and keep doing in the chain. So once this trigger, we're gonna trigger the same lever, which will reset the loop. And once this has triggered, there's no way you can break the chain unless you tell something to do so. but I think this is something really, really cool here that we start to do. All right, so let's keep it simple now. Now we have our lever, we have our door, and let's try to create something that we can use this. Let's go in here. Actually, that's fine. We're gonna just, yeah, let's just leave the way it was here. All right, so now I think we can create another kind of a loop here. We want to create here some kind of a light effect. Let's say in video games where you push a lever or you trigger a lever actually. Let's say that you want to illuminate a room or something. So let's do in here. So first let's delete all those lights in there. We don't care about this light, don't need this light. And no need for this light here as well. And all right, what we're gonna do here is that we're gonna create, we're gonna right click on the base puzzle. We're gonna create a new children. We're gonna call this BP base light. And let's check if there is any asset that we can use here that has some, any, you know, thing that we can actually use to, as an asset to as a light or some kind of something to illuminate. So we have here buttons, we have collectibles, puzzle pieces. Let's check if we have any architecture. So we have platforms, ground floor. It doesn't look like we're gonna have some kind of a proper light, but that's fine. So what we're gonna do here is that we just gonna create using this sphere. So let's go back here to the puzzle pieces sphere, and let's just use this for now as a base here of a source of light, right? So go back to our puzzle. Let's go to our blueprint again. Let's open up our puzzle, and in here I have created a base light. So let's create a new folder called light, right? Let's bring the light there, and cool, nice. Now we're gonna open up this guy here, and we are going to assign this mesh. So let's just find our puzzle mesh to this, right? And let's put it in that, compile and save. Let's just delete this actor from that, and now we can bring our base light here. Right, so the idea here is that this is not interactable, so can interact, make sure it's false, because you don't want the player to be triggering this guy here by default. And what we're gonna do here is that when we pull a lever, we're just gonna illuminate the room. Very simple, nothing too complicated. So let's first look for a point of light. And yeah, the light is here, that's fine. So the intensity of the light, let's see if this is too much, because we don't want this light to be too intense. Yeah, but we do want to be able to see the light here. Cool, nice. Now let's check the radius here. Cool. And nice. Now what we can do here is that we can control the light attenuation using a time line like we had before. So in this way we have the nice effect of the light going up and down. Right, to do this we are going to first, let me just change the color to, yeah, let's just leave the same color as the, you know, this yellowish color here. And what we're going to be doing there is we're going to go to the event graph. And if you guys remember, we have that function called fn actor interaction. So this is when we interact with the actor. And on my event graph, I'm going to create here a custom event. And I'm going to call this API light interact or something. Or you could call API light trigger or something like this. And remember that we need two variables. The first one here is called can interact, and the second one here is active, or very specific, is, you know, light active, right? And the reason why we could actually create those variables in the parent class, but every puzzle has his own thing. So in order to keep things more dynamic and more interesting, let's just make sure we create those variables every time we need them, right? So make sure the can interact is true, otherwise nothing gonna happen. Let's create a branch, and can interact is true. And now what we're gonna do here is pretty much, if you guys open up here our lever, for example, is the same thing that we did here. Like we're gonna copy all this logic and things like this. So we're gonna grab our light is active here. If it's not active, oh, actually, sorry, not Boolean. We're gonna create a branch, and from here we're gonna plug this thing here. And now if the light is not active, means it's active, otherwise it's like this, false, that's fine. And what happened now is that we need to create some kind of a variable that we're going to store to change our alpha, right? So to do that, we're going to get the point of light, and we kind of know the values that we're playing here. So intensity here is going to be something like 30,000, sorry. So now what we can do here is we can check a method called set intensity, and this will require a variable. So let's promote this to a variable. Let's call this light puzzle intensity. How intense we want this light to be, right? By default, there's no value because we're going to be setting this stuff dynamically. So if we are turning the light on, this is going to be 30,000. Otherwise, it's going to be 0, right? Because we're turning the lights off, and that's nice. So now we need to create another timeline. So let's do this again. So timeline, right? And we always want to play from start. Want to make sure we play from start. And we can rename, so the length of this is going to be, again, 1 second. You could extend this, whatever you may need to do that, but we're just going to keep simple here. And then we're going to add 2 tracks. Once again, 0 and 1. I don't know why I didn't set, but right. Let's go to track something like, I don't know, light toggle or something. And now compile and save this. If we go back to our timeline here, we are going to basically call a function called lerp float, right? And in here, I'm gonna plug this down. Make sure every time updates, we trigger this value here. Point of light, we're gonna put the point of light here. And at this point, you guys already know that we need to get our current intensity. So get intensity, and we're gonna plug this on the lerp. So basically, I think I told you guys this before, but A is where you are and B is where you want to go, right? And the alpha, which is, sorry, the B is where you want to go, and then the alpha is how long it's gonna take for this to happen. Let's make sure we put 1 second here. And what happened is that when this gets triggered, we want to make sure that the player can't interact with this thing here anymore. So can't interact is false, and that will run. That will do this, and once it's finished, we're gonna mark can interact to true again. And in this way, we don't have, once it's finished, we can retrigger the light. Depending on the puzzle, you may want to be able to switch things quickly, but I think that's the best way of handling this. But if you don't want to wait for this, you could literally completely just remove these parts in here, and in this way, you wouldn't wait. If it's in the middle, if it's in whatever, it will just keep triggering. Cool, nice. So that works. So this works, and this is doing this, and everything is doing what we are expecting to. Now let's see if this works actually. So we're gonna call the API light trigger inside our FN actor. Remember that we are overriding this function. So for example, if you don't have anything here, just search for FN, actor interaction. So we're gonna override that. And now we're gonna call the API light trigger. Now that should work. Let's see if it works. Let's see if we can actually interact with the light itself. Let's make sure that the player can come in here and interact with the light. So let's just toggle this, press play. So instead of putting a lever and doing all that stuff, we can do something like that. Yeah. So as you guys can see, we can interact with our lever. With our light. Of course, I don't have a better mesh to represent my light. That's why I'm using this ball here. But if you have a better asset there, I think that'll be quite cool as well. Now let's see if we can use a lever to pull this up. So let's say lights normally, let me just make my camera a little bit less jumpy. Normally you have a light on the ceiling, something like this. And let's say your character enters in a very cold room, in a very dark room. So what we can do here is that we put this lever there. We add the actors to interact with, and we are going to, let's say, puzzle the light, trigger the light here. And let's see if it works. So now if I press play, the room's very dark, so I come in here, open up the lever, and I have some light in the room. Then I come back, the light gets turned off. Let me see if we can control this intensity. Let's go crazy. Let's put a huge amount, a huge value here, because this light's very bland. Let's see. There we go. So you see, we have a better light here. Of course, that's too much, but we can actually do something like this. Right, so I think that's everything for this lesson, guys. I know it got a little bit longer, but I think we cover quite nice things on this. The next one, what we're gonna do here is that we are going to create a platform that we can also trigger using points. So we can say in the platform, you're gonna have the starting point is where the platform are, and then the end point is where the points that we adding. So in this way, the platform goes forward and goes backwards. So we pull a lever to go, and then once we get to the other side, we pull a lever to come back. But that's going to be the next lesson. So once again, thank you very much for watching, and I see you in the next one.